It's time to talk about the marital home, selling, buying, what you're going to do to dispose of the house in a divorce. And so rather than make the introductions myself, I'll just leave it to my guest here today. Do us a favor, for those that aren't familiar with the way these videos work, just give us your name and your contact information, and we'll do that again at the end of the video as well. But I think you're really going to enjoy some of the insights that I learned in preparing for this today. So go ahead.
Hi, my name is Bruce Warren. I work with Century 21 Everest in Fort Union area. My phone number is 801-209-8333. And my email address, if that's a little easier, is anything2invest@gmail.com.
Excellent. So we're talking about some of the unique experiences that you've had or know of in real estate agent work, and some of the things that we just talked about, things that you wish people had known or would know about when they're trying to either dispose of the house, sell the house, or maybe even if you're post-divorce trying to buy a house. And some of the things people ought to keep in mind that will make it less shocking and less painful and less disappointing.
I see.
So let me just ask this. One of the things I found most fascinating is we just had lunch before we met, on camera. Tell me a little bit about how you can tell if you've got. I thought this was interesting. I'd never heard this from anybody before. How do you know if your house is priced right to sell? Now, this is for anybody, but when it's a divorce, there's an extra matter of urgency usually. Yes. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, one way to obviously to establish value is to get an appraisal. And an appraisal is an opinion, usually one man's opinion or a woman's opinion, about the value of your home compared to other homes in the area. As an agent, I have access to the listing prices and sold prices, and we can determine that by zip code or by neighborhood, by areas, and determine that what houses are being listed for and how much they're selling for. So that would give you a good idea for getting an acceptable price for a home. If it's 95% of what the listing price is, then you could probably determine that that's a good way to establish your value.
And you mentioned that you hold an open house, and if in 3 weeks, tell them a little bit about that. I thought that was interesting too.
One of our rules of thumb at Century 21 is if you are on the market on the MLS and you are available for all kinds of buyers, if during a 3-week period, for example, you have 2 or 3 showings and no contracts or no offers put on the property, then you're perhaps 7 to 10% overpriced. If during that same 3-week time frame you have 8 or 10 showings, for example, and have some offers that are below what you're expecting, then you're probably 5 to 7% overpriced.
Thought that was really interesting. So that should give you an easy idea, or just help you to kind of see which way the wind is blowing. That was the other thing you'd mentioned. I had thought that, and I've done this before in other settings, best time to sell a house would be springtime, maybe early summertime or something like that, when it's easy to get around, there's no snow or weather to have to fight. You can get to see what the yard's like and things like that. When's the best time to sell? When's the best time to buy?
Traditionally, the spring and summer are what we all know is to be the buying and selling season in real estate. One of the better times of the year, I think, is in the winter, late November and January, February. The serious buyers are out. They're willing to go through the snow. They're willing to fight the weather if need be, and they're not adverse to moving during a snowstorm. It doesn't snow that much or that often here in Salt Lake City, so the chances of moving day being covered with snow are not very great, but it's the serious buyers that are out that time of year.
I thought that was a good thing. I mean, it helps to filter the market. You're not going to have to go through as many people. You may not get as many inquiries,
right,
but those that are made are more likely serious inquiries by people that are saying, hey, if I'm willing to get out in this weather looking for a house, then you can think that I'm serious about buying a house.
Yeah.
So what are some other, let's talk a little bit about when people are selling their home specifically, and that comes up quite often in a divorce setting. What would you talk to people about when they say, you were mentioning at lunch that you know a guy who's asking $60,000 more than you think the house is worth? and it's been on the market a long time. What are some of the mistakes people who are selling a house make when they are trying to determine the value of their house? We talked about, for example, the person's like, I finished my basement. Nobody else has a finished basement on my street. Who cares?
Well, the buyers obviously care, and if a home is overpriced, the buyer's agents won't bring you buyers because it is overpriced, and it may be a lot of work to get that price down to where it should be. Because we are homeowners and we have pride in home ownership, we always usually think our home is worth more than it actually is. And because your basement is finished in your house and you think your neighbor's is, it may or may not be as finished as nicely as yours. It may not have running water.
Let me give you another example. In other words, I know that everybody on my street, hypothetically, I know everybody on my street, there's maybe one finished basement and then there's mine. And that finished basement, it was done in the 50s. It's got funny wood paneling and it smells weird and all that kind of stuff. And it's got old outdated appliances or light fixtures. But I put mine in there and I didn't go overboard, but I put top quality materials in there. And let's assume that I put between the value of my labor and my materials, $13,000 into finishing my little basement.
Right.
So if my house was worth $200,000 before I started, now it's worth $213,000, right?
Well, it'll be worth more than that because you've established more square footage, livable space.
But am I going to get dollar for dollar what I put in out of it necessarily just because I finished the basement?
You should get a little more in this case, I think.
Okay.
Because you've increased the square footage, you now have a family room or perhaps 2 bedrooms and a bathroom down there. So it will actually increase the value of your home.
So I should be able to recoup, I should at least break even.
Yes, sir.
Let me give another example then. How about I live in an area where everything is a single floor, kind of post-World War II bungalows like the neighborhood I live in, and I decide to add 2 floors to my house. I rip off the roof and I build it 2 stories. So I am the only 3-story house on the street, and I sunk $100,000 into that. Is my house now worth $300,000? No, sorry, $400,000. Everybody else on that street, they're going for around $200,000, but my house now has 2 extra stories. I put $100,000. I did $300,000. Yeah. So I had a $200,000 house. I put $100,000 into it. Is my house now worth $300,000?
Well, probably. The value of a house, the sale of a house, is determined what a willing buyer will pay for it and what a willing seller will sell it for. So it does depend on location, as we like to say in the real estate business. And if you've done a good job and used good materials, you could get that $400,000.
The point I'm driving at is that if people are coming to my neighborhood looking for a little starter home, how much interest is there going to be in a 3-story house in a starter home neighborhood?
That's not a starter home to most of us.
That's what I'm thinking.
Obviously.
And so I'm saying a lot of times people will sink a lot of money, or they'll build a pizza oven in their backyard or something. Right. And then the people coming to look at the house will go, well, that's nice, but I don't want it. It's like, well, I spent $10,000 on it. Like, it's not worth $10,000 to me.
That's right.
I'm not going to use it. In fact, it's really kind of an eyesore, and I'm going to have to, clean it or get the bird droppings off of it. So, what are some things that people can do when they are forced or faced with having to sell their home? What can they do to improve its curb appeal and or its value? What's the most you can get for the least amount of inputs?
Well, keeping the place clean. Curb appeal, obviously, you don't want toys and garbage all over the yard or weeds overgrown. Your gardens should look good if it's warm weather. Updated or at least a fresh coat of paint perhaps, or some newer carpet would help. If you're showing the home, having toys and stuff all over the neighborhood or living room, and you've got to keep the home as neat as possible. It doesn't have to be spotless or spick and span at all times, but if you're expecting people to come over, you want your house to show as best as it can.
You mentioned something about people coming to see a house that I had not considered, but made perfect sense. Tell us a little bit about some of the scams that people pull on home sellers.
we're referring to for sale by owners. If you're selling your home for sale by owner and you have a sign in your front yard and I come knocking on your door and say, gee, it looks like a great home, can I take a quick tour? And you're usually going to say yes. If you're there alone, if you happen to be female, the children are there, you're letting a complete stranger into your house. I don't think that's a good idea. I wouldn't want my wife to be doing that. Some of the scams that happen is a couple people will come in and go different directions, so you can't watch both of them or be with both of them, and they might be found going through your prescriptions in your bathroom medicine cabinets, stealing any little knickknacks, or if you happen to have diamonds laying around in the living room, they might pick those up too. So to me, it's a safety issue of letting strangers, complete strangers, into your house when you happen to be there alone.
Because if you have a real estate agent with you, that person kind of is the tour guide, and that person can not only show people the highlights of what this makes this house special, but also keep an eye on visitors as well.
And real estate agents bring qualified buyers. We don't just let anyone walk in through your home because they say that they can afford it. There's a record. If there's a key box, a super key box on your home, there's a record of who came into your home using a super key that agents have.
That's interesting. Now, you talked a little bit about, these for sale by owners. That's one of the pitfalls that wouldn't automatically come to mind. But what do you say to people? And remember, I'm not endorsing Bruce. I'm just grateful that he's come here to talk about this, and he's sharing with you some important things. Now, you can take or leave whatever information he wants to give, but so far I've found this to be very helpful. So why is it that somebody would want to hire a real estate agent as opposed to just saving the cost of your commission?
Well, a lot of times we certainly have more experience. We know the rules, we know the laws, we know the forms that need to be used, we know the proper protocols. And according to studies done out there, that real estate agents, people who list their property with realtors, get 8 to 12% more money for their home. We can do it quickly, more quickly than for sale by owners. And it's an advantage that we bring experience to the marketplace and can help you get it sold.
In fact, you mentioned that what percentage of for sale by owners end up changing course and just hiring a real estate agent anyway?
It's 96% of for sale by owners end up listing with an agent anyway. And I do call for sale by owners, and some of you may know me. Please don't hate me. I'm just trying to do my job. Most for sale by owners are willing to pay a 3% buyer's commission, and if we can get you more money, 8 to 10% more money, it would cover the additional 3% of the cost of a realtor.
And then some.
And then some.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's great. I appreciate you coming to talk to us, and at a time when you're going through so many other upheavals in your life, a real estate agent can give you a lot of, you can benefit from a lot of that experience, a lot of that skill, and understanding of a market that you don't understand. You may be selling a house you didn't expect to be leaving so soon. There's a number of things that a real estate agent can do for you, even if you don't end up hiring the real estate agent to be your agent.
Right.
Which, now I'm not asking you to exploit them, but they can provide other services for little to no cost to help you get an idea of what to do and get to know and trust your real estate agent in the process.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate you coming in. And so before we finish up, please give them your name and contact information again for anyone that would like to give you and your brokerage a call. Okay,
well, I appreciate the time here. Bruce Warren, Century 21 Everest in Fort Union. My number is 801-209-8333, and my email is anything2invest@gmail.com.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.